Our YouTube's only about 3 seconds behind.
Hello, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining from. Welcome to another week. It's been a busy week over here, a lot of moving stuff going on, but today we're gonna do something a little bit different and bring on a special guest. Today we're gonna chat about live production, broadcast, sports production, which I have not done any of myself, so I'm happy to have a guest here, TVJAY, to talk about that. If you do have questions, drop them in the chat with the letter Q. It'll help filter them on the screen, and bring your questions for Jay or myself. And we will get things going in a second here. So we're going to do a Q&A with Jay about sports productions and live broadcasts and TV station things. Great to have someone with some actual experience in that on here. At the end, towards the end of the stream, we'll do like a little behind the scenes tour of how the remote stream is working, but we'll save that for the end. So first, focus on questions about the live production side of things. I just realized I changed something at the last second. So there we go. Okay. Without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in Jay. I didn't think to like make a little intro song. That would have been fun. But I guess I guess we can at least bring him on with a round of applause. All right. Thanks, Jay. Thanks for joining. So,
Oh, you're welcome.
let's start out with just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and what your experience is in the world of production.
Alrighty, well, I'm TVJAY on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. I started about a year ago, or really posting videos to it about a year ago. But I've been a TV engineer for 19 years now. I'm the head of technology at a TV station in the Midwest. We'll just keep it generic. On my, free time, I do freelance sports productions, and I work at a university at the radio station, making sure that is on the air and compliant. So I can't really talk about my TV station too much, but I can talk in generalities. But basically, I do freelance sports production, which includes everything down to from a 2-camera shoot at the university to 15 camera shoots for Detroit Tigers games. I've done the NBA All-Star game in Cleveland, and that had, I don't know, 11 trucks and God knows how many cameras there were there. I just had one very small part in that, but so yeah, I mean, I use vMix. I've done, full-size productions. I've done OBS stuff. I currently have a basement studio that's kind of in process right now. I call it version 0.5 because we're not even to version 1 yet. But basically, it's a Blackmagic TV studio in a rack over here to my left, which is how I'm coming to you. Would allow me to show some pictures. So I do have a bunch of pictures kind of queued up and ready to go. If people want to see examples of things, I can show some things. I've had to blur logos where required, but yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Yeah, very cool. So yeah, bring drop some questions in the chat again. Start with the letter Q, and we'll take questions as we go. But otherwise, yeah, I would love to hear more about some of your recent gigs, I guess. Like, what's the most recent gig you've done?
The most recent was probably a graduation using vMix. It was a 3-camera shoot using vMix, and we used vMix because the graphics are extremely easy and automatable inside of vMix, which is why we did it that way. That was probably back in May.
We're already getting some questions about your setup here. Fantastic wants to know about your green screen setup.
Well, and then it's basically one of those Amazon green screen kits. There's a key light here, a fill light here, and then there's a 2 lights on the back wall, one down below and one up high. And basically it's just a generic sheet I bought off Amazon. So
oh, not even like the Elgato kit.
No, this was like the cheapest green wall kit you could find.
Nice.
It came with 3 little lights. It does actually have 2 umbrellas for reflection, so help kind of damper the light out, but I'm not even using those today.
Very cool. Taekwondo says vMix is really cool. I also use it a lot. Yeah, so that's actually, this is a good topic. So I haven't really used vMix other than a couple of times when it's been at a venue I've been at. But I'm curious to know, since you do have Blackmagic gear at your studio, how do you kind of see the mix or trade-offs between the fully software thing like vMix versus using hardware like the Blackmagic gear? Because it sounds like you use both a fair amount.
Yeah, I use both. I definitely prefer the hardware whenever possible, but at a certain price point and a certain complexity, to avoid complexity, I should say, vMix fits the bill. We use vMix at the university for everything because it allows one person to do a lot of things. We can do graphics, we can do replays, we can insert our commercials or promos and whatnot. So therefore, from a bodies number, from a bodies perspective, we only have 2 or 3 people for an event. So we can't do everything in hardware because we don't have the bodies to do it. So vMix makes that really easy. Like I was giving the example of graduation, we had one person doing everything for graduation, and then we had 3 camera people. So we had 3 camera people who were actually manning the cameras out front. We did not use PTZ, but we had one person in the back who was literally switching video and putting in lower thirds for every student. And there was like 350 students. So you can imagine creating that many names in a lower third will be complex or complicated. So with vMix, we were able to just literally bring in the Excel spreadsheet, and then we triggered using a Stream Deck a button that just said next name, next name, next name. And so one person could literally with one hand switch the show, and then with one hand change the name fonts. I don't know how you would do that with hardware.
Yeah,
I just don't see how that's possible.
That would take a lot. I'm trying to think how I would even approach that with the ATEM, because at the least when I've done last minute graphics before using the Photoshop plugin, you can at least upload from a computer directly into the ATEM and have them ready to go right away, which does save a couple of steps. But that's nothing like creating 100 names in a row, like bam, bam, bam. So yeah, that's a good use of it. Makes sense.
And you have to imagine too that the people don't always line up in the proper order.
I was going to say, what happens if they're slightly out of order?
So with the macros or the buttons in Stream Deck, you just went next. So you skip back, or you can go back and forward a lot easier than you can just reloading the graphics. So the vMix automation for fonts is one reason why vMix is used. And then replay is just absolutely, the built-in replay feature of vMix is probably worth more than the vMix software itself.
I was going to say, Robert has a question here of what you use for replay. So it's vMix?
Oh. Yeah, the stuff that I personally do, it's always vMix. If I'm doing a bigger event like Tigers or the NBA, they have dedicated replay machines and people. But if I'm involved in the production, we're using vMix. It's going to be replay for the, we're going to use vMix for replay because it can do, the new version can do 8 cameras. So it can record 8 cameras and play back 2 at a time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You always say that you use the ATEM, ATEM's the best way to do ISO recordings. Mm-hmm. vMix is the best way to do replays. There's just nobody else is going to touch that for $2,000 or $3,000, whatever that license is now.
Yeah, good tip there. Michael says, I literally use vMix just for instant replay, and it's great. Also, Tech Condo for bigger shows.
It does a really good job at that.
For bigger shows, I only use vMix for playout and lower thirds and replay. Cool, yeah.
I have never tried to combine vMix with a hardware solution. I basically either go fully on hardware or fully on software.
Oh, really? Interesting. Okay. Because I think, let's see, Taekwondo says, for me, vMix is almost always part of the production. For small productions, it's putting the show together, adjusting cameras, lower thirds. Because I could definitely see using vMix as replay and graphics, like downstream from camera switching, and just kind of feeding 1 or 2 feeds into vMix. But you're saying you mostly use it where you're just all in on it. All the cameras are going into vMix directly.
Yeah, because if you're like, for example, our football games that we're doing this fall, we will have anywhere from 2 to 4 cameras depending upon the day, and so all 4 cameras will go into vMix and then be recorded in replay and then switched. So I don't know what camera is going to have the shot I want, the touchdown or the interception or whatever it is. So I need to record every camera I have. And even on the bigger productions, every camera gets recorded. It's not like you can just kind of pick and choose. Okay, I want that one to this one. You're going to record every camera. And there's several reasons behind that. A, it's sports. You never know what's going to happen. Yeah. So you may need this camera, you may need that camera. There's also league things, like in NCAA or football, your cameras can be used as official replay cameras So you have to have these feeds set up and ready to go as dedicated feeds to the replay booth should they call down and say, I want to see your camera 3. So you have to have certain things set up and wired ready to go at certain levels. Now, I only do D2 schools, generally speaking. So like I'm not doing the Division 1, so there is no replay for the officials. But I have done a D1 event where I was in the truck and the phone, it's literally an old analog phone, and it rings and they're like, I want to see camera 3.
Oh, wow.
And now that replay operator is working on behalf of the officials, not the truck anymore. And so they're literally playing back clips that the booth wants to see, not the truck.
So those are getting played back, not in your broadcast, just being played back into like TVs around the venue.
They're wired up to the officials booth upstairs, and the replay operator is playing back whatever clips they want to see, fast forward, rewind, whatever, slow motion. And in that situation, they're using a dedicated replay device that has, maybe 8 inputs, 2 outputs, or 4 inputs, 4 outputs, however it's configured. And so they're using a dedicated device to that. Now the truck can also, of course, see those same feeds. So you may often hear the announcer saying, this is the feed that they're looking at, because it's the same feed going to both places.
Mm-hmm. Robert says, so you're not using DP Sport for the official replay? I don't know what DP Sport is, though, so you should explain that.
I can't remember what DP Sport actually is, but I do know the replay people have their own devices and they can record certain things. But they don't have every camera, at least from what I understood before, was that they didn't have every camera fed into that. And so there are certain times where they will call down to the truck and want to see our cameras instead of their cameras.
Okay.
They have their own feeds, they have their own stuff, but their box may only have 4 inputs. We may have 7 cameras on the site.
Oh, it's DV Sport, official replay for NCAA Pac-12. Okay.
Oh yeah, DV Sport. Oh yeah, I've heard of that before.
Cool. Okay, got a couple more questions for you here. From IT Never Gets Old. How do you handle the fragility of a general purpose computer? That's a good question. So you're using vMix on a computer. So what kind of problems do you have with it? Like, how do you handle Windows Update messages popping up randomly?
Well, you try to disable Windows Update if you can, but you can't always do that. I understand that. The biggest issue we've had with computers is audio devices. I can give 2 examples. Basically, the one that burned us the last time was we were using vMix for a parade, and we had, I want to say, 8 microphones on the parade route. And so we had a big mixer fed via USB into vMix. And on Thursday it worked, on Friday it worked, Saturday morning in the freezing cold, it did not want to connect. It was making sound, but for some reason vMix or Windows could not see it.
Huh.
So luckily I had a USB preamp that I grabbed out of my bag, plugged it in, and at least got sound into the computer. It was distorted, but at least we kind of got sound in. We could at least start the show, because the show starts at 10 o'clock no matter what. And this was like 9:50. We realized there was no audio flowing. So we got the audio going through this USB preamp, but it was distorted because it wasn't really the best preamp. It was kind of one I just had lying around. So I ended up going to the truck, kind of the storage truck we had, and grabbing a different USB audio mixer, throwing it down on the ground, plugging it in, and then in the middle of the stream, changing over from my preamp to my mixer, which was only being fed by the bigger mixer. So Windows audio devices are definitely the biggest issue I have with vMix. The way Windows handles audio is confusing at times and doesn't make a lot of sense, even though you may set it. During the boot up process, if it detects the device sooner than later, I'm not quite sure how that works, but audio issues are definitely the biggest issue we have. And
you're getting
audio in and getting audio out.
You're getting some sympathy here. Grant says, we just had a gig with audio issues with Windows. It was a harrowing time trying to figure out what was going on. Yep.
Yeah, that's the biggest downside for vMix is that it's software based and it runs on Windows, and you have to be able to deal with the Windows issues that are going to come up. And unfortunately, so I wish they made it for Linux or something else like a Mac, but they don't, and therefore it's kind of a give and take a little bit. I mean, that's why I do understand the desire and the want for hardware based solutions. You'll at a certain level you'll never see vMix again, because once you get to a certain threshold you can't have those failures, you can't have that kind of stuff.
So I take it, does the TV station use vMix at all, or is that all hardware?
Oh, the TV station's all hardware. We have like a Sony switcher and an SSL audio board. um, it's all SDI video, Dante for audio. They're all hardware boxes, they're all dual fed power supplied.
Right.
you know
Yep. Yep. Fantastic says Windows audio devices, Mac audio devices, Linux audio devices. It's all a problem. Yeah.
Fair point.
Yep. That is fair. Robert wants to know what's the make and model of the mixer that didn't work.
Hold on, I got audio in my ear for some reason.
Oops. What's going on?
Where am I getting audio from?
Double audio from something?
Oh, hold on. My Windows browser started playing audio. Sorry about that.
Speaking of audio problems.
Yeah, it was just a different window decided to start playing audio.
Plus one.
So sorry, the brand mixer didn't work. That was a Allen and Heath USB mixer, and it had worked for 2 days in testing, and then it didn't work the morning of.
That's really frustrating. Really frustrating. Okay, so another vMix question for you. Can you comment on the reliableness of sharing program feeds via SRT using vMix?
I actually cannot. I've never used SRT inside of vMix other than in testing. So I have no actual experience with that particular issue.
Okay, well, I think TechCondo uses SRT and vMix a lot, so go ask on TechCondo's channel. Michael says, so many of my video issues result in, oops, I forgot to XYZ, but with audio, it's usually always literally don't know, and I probably never will know. Yeah, that's fair.
I have been on a lot of remotes where basically there are issues and you want to know why something didn't work, or you want to know what happened, and at the end of the day, it's already gone and over with, and it's time to tear down and you go home.
Yep. Yep. Okay, let's see. We got some more questions for you. From Gwen, how different is broadcast for TV versus live stream to internet? Is it mainly about scale, complexity, or are there some core differences?
How different is, well, I mean, with broadcast, there's more people. My TV station has approximately 110 employees, give or take. My department is 16 people. So when we do a broadcast, I mean, there's probably 8 people involved with the actual production, including talent. So you have at least 4 people on air, 4 people behind the scenes making things happen. To compare that to this stream right here, it's Aaron and I and nobody else. Aaron spent quite a bit of time getting set up for this event. I have spent countless hours, tweaking my setup and whatnot and getting it right, and it's not even remotely close to being right. Whereas in TV, I gave the example earlier of a dedicated replay operator. In TV, you have a particular job. Whenever I do these remotes, I'm typically what they call an A2 or audio assistant type of person. So I am assigned to either like run audio for the field, run audio for the booth, or that's it. Like I'm not mixing the show. I'm not switching the show. I don't care about the cameras or the video at all. My job is to make sure that the audio on the field or the audio in the booth is correct. And then beyond that, I'm done. I don't have to do anything else or worry about anything else. So in those big productions, you are solely focused on your one particular part of the broadcast, and that's it. Whereas internet and YouTube is kind of, we know, but Tech Condo for sure knows. It may be one person, you may have help, but they may just be a camera operator. You may not have help, troubleshooting why Windows plays a browser tab. You know?
Yeah, that's for sure. 8 people for broadcast, 2 for internet stream. It seems about right. Yeah. Tech Hondo says we use SRT every week for church service. KiloView encoder that pushes out SRT and receive it via vMix. 4 years every week. Never having any issues. Fantastic. That's great. Good to know. Cool. We got more questions for you. Last week we had a question about how TV stations bring in remote guests. So do you have any insights you can share on how you handle remote guests in the station where it is all hardware based and you're not using vMix that has the very easy remote guest tool built in?
Yeah, it kind of depends. We do, before COVID, we didn't really do remote guest at all. And then COVID kind of forced us to get creative. And so we switched to using Skype a lot. And then we switched to Zoom. And so we kind of now do a balance of both Skype and Zoom. We find that people don't have Skype accounts these days. So Zoom makes it easier. But if it's, that's just for regular guests for whatever it is. We still bring guests in the studio a lot of time. And if we're going to go interview the mayor, or we're going to have like a guest on for several segments or whatever it is, we will probably send a photog out to the location with either a live view backpack or a microwave truck. Or if we're doing like a 2-hour long pregame show, we'll send a sat truck out just to make sure that we, get that feed out. So it kind of depends on what kind of topic, what it is, who the interview is, how long the interview is going to be. Is it a 2-minute interview for our noon show, or is it a full 60-minute interview for whatever? Then it kind of depends.
So if it's Zoom or Skype, are you using the Skype TX hardware rack that they use to pull in ISO feeds? And what is it for Zoom? Is it Zoom's new Zoom ISO, or is it Epiphan's Zoom integration, or what?
No, it's it's very basic screen share capture device via a decimator, MDHX, I think it's called.
Okay. Keeping it low tech, I guess. It works.
I mean, it was during COVID. We started setting it up, and we had what we had. We couldn't, go buy stuff, and then we just kind of figured out, this works. I mean, we do a lot of cropping and putting it in the screen so that you can't really tell it's via Zoom.
No,
kind of like this stream right now, you really can't tell.
Yep, makes sense. So I guess Zoom ISO and Epiphan stuff didn't exist at the beginning of COVID, so couldn't have used it then. But those are some pretty good tools now. Okay, let's pull out some other questions from a little bit earlier that I was skipping through. IT Never Gets Old says, how much longer will conventional one-way, one-to-many over-the-air / cable broadcasting survive? That's a tough question. What's your take on that? I guess as opposed to these kinds of things where it's much more interactive shows, or just smaller productions, more distributed.
I'm kind of optimistic about the future. I mean, it's still a very big business. I mean, you've heard before that video would kill the radio star, and yet radio stations still exist. So I mean, I'm pretty optimistic about the future of it. If you look at the numbers of the people watching, NFL football or whatever it is, insert name of your favorite show, they're still pretty good. I mean, they're not what they used to be, but they're still pretty good. And I don't see that going anywhere. People like to just sit back and be enjoyed, or, be entertained, I should say. And a lot of things now are also social enjoyment. So have your friends over to watch football or watch racing or whatever it is that you want to watch. So I don't see that going away. Obviously, as a YouTuber now who has a channel and had it for a year, this is definitely as enjoyable, if not more so in some ways. I definitely love the interactive part of that. Um, I think stations are realizing they need to change a little bit. So without giving away too much, I mean, some stations now are doing instant feedback polls on their, while they watch the newscast. You can actually comment or, chime in and the vote on whatever poll or topic they're talking about. Of course, with social media, the stations are engaged, with their viewers, good and bad. um, so I don't see television going away, especially we're switching to what they call ATSC 3.0, or you may have heard it as next gen television. It's the new broadcast standard. It is going to be, it allows for much more, I guess, customization. We could make a really resilient, like 3 megabit per second stream that you could watch on your phone or in a car driving on a highway, or we could make a really high quality 4K stream that requires an outdoor antenna that's 10 feet wide. I mean, we can change that bit rate based on what we want to do. I have my opinions what we're going to do, but basically, I think if you're hoping to see your anchors in 4K, that'll never happen. There are financial reasons why it's better for us to bring you 8 channels of HD than it is to bring you 1 channel of 4K.
Fair.
And this new standard will allow us to bring you 8 channels of HD video, and 7.1 audio or whatever audio standard they've come up with now. And we can actually do targeted ads with the new standard. We can do, because it's all IP based. It's an IP stream that your receiver decodes. So we can add logos. We could deliver firmware updates to your car. We could do all kinds of different things. And they're actually testing that, I think, in Dallas or Detroit. They actually will do firmware updates via over-the-air television, which I don't understand, but hey, if it works, it works.
This is an interesting point too from IT Never Gets Old. MLB, NBA, and other properties are moving to streaming, bypassing the TV stations. It's an interesting point when the original brands that have the content are just doing the distribution themselves over the internet instead of going through the TV networks. Have you seen that much at all affecting anything?
Yes. Yeah, basically there was a broadcaster who bought some TV networks and I think spent a little too much money, and then COVID happened. And so they're basically going through bankruptcy right now. And so in order to get the content out, NBA or mostly Major League Baseball has figured out they can just go direct to consumer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in some places, they're actually involving the local TV stations because they still want to be in every household they can be. And while streaming is very popular and very commonplace these days, there's a certain audience that doesn't do streaming, and they like to watch baseball all day long. My grandpa, and for example, he's 98 years old. He's never going to have a streaming device in his house, but he has DirecTV and he can watch, baseball all day long. So to get those people, I know they're not the audience that you want, but they're people. And in order to get those audiences, I think they're going to do a partnership between streaming and your local TV station or whatever it is that might, want to air a game here and there.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to mention while we have everybody here, I did notice that your YouTube channel is getting very, very close to 1,000 subscribers. So let's go ahead and drop a link to your channel in the chat here. And everybody should go subscribe. Subscribe to TVJAY. And also, David is doing a great job of reminding people to give this stream a thumbs up as well. So thank you for that, David. Got some more questions for you, though.
I'm about 1,000 hours short of monetization right now.
1,000 hours short. So, okay. So we got to get you up to 1,000 subscribers and 1,000 hours. Fantastic. So, okay, here's one from Kevin. Have you done any remote productions where you just sent a camera to the site and mix distributed from a remote studio? I guess you would have to send a camera operator as well.
Well, I mean, we've done something like that. Every year we do a pregame show. And so for the big sporting event. And so we go on location and we send our sat truck. Usually I go, but I didn't go last year. And so we'll take the sat truck out there and we will send 2 cameras back with 2 different reporters. And so we'll send both of those back to the studio, and the whole studio is cut. The whole show is cut back there, even though everybody in the show is on location, 3 hours away. So yeah, we do that all the time for news. Never done it for sports, but I know that is happening now, where a lot of sports productions are taking place where the cameras and audio people are on site, and it's all via sent back via SRT, most likely, if I had to take a guess, or fiber. It's being sent back to ESPN or whoever's doing the game. They call them REMI productions, or REMI, and basically it's a way to save a lot of cost, where you only send people who need to be on site to run a camera or plug a microphone in, and then you send that all back to a studio, like in Bristol, Connecticut, where ESPN is, and then they switch the show back there. It saves a lot of money on travel expenses, and then people can do, the same technical director, the same audio operator or producer could, in theory, do 5 games a week, because they could do 1 game every day instead of having to spend a day traveling here and a day traveling there. So it's definitely a more efficient way of doing things. And I think that there's a place for that. Obviously, it's happening a lot, but I feel like there's also a lot more risk involved. And I've heard of some pretty bad failures in that realm, where, the fiber gets cut or whatever goes down. And so then what do you do? So I think those productions will be used a lot more, but I think, like everything, they have a cap. The Super Bowl will never be done that way because it's too risky to chance it. The Indy 500 will never be done that way because it's too risky.
Makes a ton of sense. Fantastic says the Olympics is produced this way for some countries. NBC still sends all their own stuff too, but you can take the alternate feeds that way. Makes sense. Okay, we got some more questions for you that are coming in. From Bullhorn. Okay. Campex, Triax, SMPTE fiber, how many iterations of video transmission to the trucks have you seen across your career?
Well, I've used SMPTE fiber. I've seen it, I should say. We currently use that at the station. I've seen Triax. It's not as common as it used to be. Campex, I've heard of Campex. I can't remember off the top of my head what that actually is. But yeah, I've heard of that. SMPTE fiber is very common these days. For those of you who don't know, SMPTE fiber is basically a heavy cable with 2 fibers in it and then 2 conductors for power. And so you plug the connector into the camera and it powers the camera, and then all the data signals are going back and forth over fiber, and that can go a very long distance. And that includes, because when we're talking about sports production, there's a camera person who's running the camera in the field, but then there's also a whole truck, connected to it. And there's usually 1 or 2 people whose sole job it is to control the camera's colors, the shading, the iris, all that stuff. So the camera operator is simply controlling the camera. They're not shading the camera. They're not changing the colors. We call it painting. They're not painting the camera with a certain look. That's a person back in video who's doing that. And so they can control the camera's iris over that cable as well. And on some of these big shows, they could have 30 to 40 cameras, all run back with SMPTE fiber to the truck.
Okay. Changing topics, back to vMix. Do you have a recommended wireless tally system to go with vMix? I have M5 stick tally lights, but they fail and disconnect in crowded environments. I mean, that makes sense. Anytime you got that much Wi-Fi in a room, anything with a small Wi-Fi antenna is not going to have a good time.
No, this is the one thing I really wish somebody would come out with, is a vMix tally system that works and is wired. I would love to have a wired based tally system for vMix, because currently our camera operators have no way of knowing if they're live other than the director saying you're live. and that's not the best way to do television. So I really wish there was a better way to do tally for
Okay.
vMix. That is definitely the one thing that is lacking
Yep.
from that product.
Here's a good question. Have you ever used products like the YOLOBOX Pro for any serious live broadcasting? I guess it depends on what your definition of serious is, but it's a good question.
No, honestly, until you showed it on your channel, Aaron, I never heard of the YOLOBOX. So never seen it in the wild, never heard of it before. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. I would be curious to hear any situations of using it in a broadcast setting. It seems like a reasonable option for the times where you can't afford to send a crew out somewhere, but you need to do some sort of out in the field gathering, and the fact that you can stream it back to a studio and mix it in the studio, I could see using it for, like you want to send somebody out to cover a game, but you don't want it to be a whole 5-person crew, and then you just want to show some clips back in the station.
well, I will tell you that there's a local cable company that sends out 3 live view backpacks with 3 cameras, and that's how they do their local high school productions.
Okay.
And so they just send out 3 cameras, they send 3 live view backpacks, and the anchors, or I guess you call them anchors, the host basically sits back in a studio and watches all 3 feeds come in and announces the game from a studio location. And this is at a local level. This is not ESPN or anything like that at all. This is just a local high school lacrosse game or basketball game or whatever it is being fed on a local cable channel.
So that means they're getting 3 simultaneous feeds back in the studio, right? So they're mixing it as if they were on site, basically.
Correct. Yeah, they're getting 3 feeds back, and each backpack is separate. So on the live views, you can actually dial in how much delay you want. So you could set them all to be 5 seconds if you wanted to, or however long you want it to be. And so that way they're basically in sync. There are also live view backpacks that have 4 individual spigots on them for plugging in cameras. So you have one backpack that can send 4 feeds back. And in that case, it would be exactly synchronized because they hit the backpack at the same time.
That is very cool. That's very cool. Yeah, that high school is well funded. So is it the high school budget or is it the TV station's budget? That's a good question.
No, it's a cable channel who covers high school sports.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So I guess that answers the question of whether you use live view. Have you done that kind of production?
Yeah, we used the TV station used to have live view backpacks. We switched to a different manufacturer, but we used live view for several years. They're good products. They do definitely work. The only issue I always say with them is I always say use the right tool for the right job. We had an incident where they took the live view backpack out on a boat in a lake, and there's no cell phone towers in the lake. And so it didn't work out very well.
Yeah.
And there's no good way to do that, but you kind of have to know the limitations of the tool. I've been to political rallies. Political rallies can be well attended. Everybody has a cell phone. Everybody has it out using it. A station shows up with a backpack and they don't get a signal. But we showed up with a sat truck, and so we're sending our signal out via satellite, and so we're live on the air via satellite where the guys next to us are, trying to fuddle with the backpack and get to work or whatever it is, or just gave up and are just shooting a video that you'll see tomorrow or later tonight. Whereas we're live on the air with our talent saying, so and so is speaking behind us. Let's join them live. So the backpack would have failed in that situation, but the sat truck worked. So I always just say, use the right tool for the right job.
Yep. So Eric preempted that you already explained about live view versus a microwave truck. So that makes a lot of sense for sure. For sure. Nil says watch Jay's 2-hour stream all about remote television productions from August 16th, 2022. Lots of BTS photos. Do you want to share some photos here of the things that you've got pulled together?
Oh yeah, I can. Hold on.
Cool.
Let me go. So I think he's talking about the NBA one that I did. Let me go find
Hmm. I'll
that
see if I
one.
can pull up the link for the chat too. I'm guessing it's
Alrighty. So
the
if I go,
NBA All Star Week.
yeah.
Cool. I'll drop that link in the chat for people.
So if I go full, I can change my
Cool.
photos. So there's just a couple of photos I have. Basically, um, this was our first day there. This is the NBA All-Star game. And so the truck, arrives and we have to pull it out. And so you've seen these trucks before, maybe that have slide outs. Well, here's what it looks like inside that slide out. The whole wall actually slides out, and the floor is actually those big metal panels on the right-hand side that you see.
Oh, that's cool.
Um, so then that's actually like how big the truck is, that it arrives in a semi truck and kind of folds out. And then this is actually the picture. My backdrop is actually from that truck.
Mm.
So here you see the inside where there's four people in the front row. We call that the P1 bench. And so you have like a producer, a director. In this case, you probably have a coordinating producer who's on the far left side. You have the technical director who's sitting in front of the switcher. That's the thing on the right hand side with all the buttons. Um, this switcher probably uh, is got 128 inputs, I think, probably, if I had to guess. I don't remember exactly what it is.
That's so many inputs.
So many inputs. And hold on, my stuff is not working right. My mouse. Oh, I'm in the wrong stuff. That's why.
Eric's asking, so the
This is actually
Eric asks, are the people's feet resting on the pull-out section of the trailer in that photo? Is that how that works?
no, I was taking the photo from the pull-out part.
Ah, okay.
No one sits on the pull-out part. The pull-out part is basically a hallway.
Yeah, okay.
It's basically what allows people to get in and out, and therefore there's no equipment actually there. So this is actually the switcher brain. So this is the actual frame for that switcher. Like I said, it has probably 128 inputs and like 64 outputs, if I had to guess.
Hmm.
Um,
That's so many fans.
so yeah, and so like all these trucks have like patch panels. This happens to be the patch panel for that truck. Um, Basically everything's flexible, so you can connect. If a producer wants to sit at one location, they can plug their laptop in and work from there. But they could also, that position could be used for graphics. That position could be used for replay.
Hmm.
So it's all patchable inside the truck. Um, and so one thing, like the truck has a bunch of storage. So underneath where the people are sitting are these storage bays that are packed full. I mean, every storage bay is used and has cables or equipment or whatever it is in it. And so this is just a picture of like the under bays. So people would be sitting on top of those bays or those bins
Right, okay.
essentially.
I'm just looking at the labels on these. Is that green one just full of Cat5 cables, and then the one below it is just full of power strips? Is that what's going on?
Oh yeah, yep,
Nice. Okay.
yeah. So there's a Cat5 cable. I'm not sure what else is. Yeah, I mean, so like this one says, long video cable. you know, there's short video cable boxes. I mean, there's tons of stuff because these trucks have to carry everything you need for a full production.
Hmm.
You know, let me see what else I have here. This is another photo from a different bay. So you see here,
A little bit less
these are
organized.
just cables that are tossed in. Yeah, a little bit less organized. But basically, you got power cables, and this is probably right here. This is like we mentioned Triax or SMPTE earlier. This is what that looks like. That's the kind of the
Mm.
cable they use. It's heavy and thick, and it's not fun to work with, but it's what works. We also have over here you can see this teal cable. It would be a malt cable, so it probably has, I don't know, 6 or 8 video cables in one kind of bundle. It has uses. I'm not sure what was, we didn't use it for this production. But yeah, I mean, you got all these trucks just carry everything they need for production. So even they have toolboxes on them and pieces of wood in case the parking lot they're in is not flat. They can actually use the pieces of wood to get a level, for the jacks to, jack the truck up.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, good question from Michael. What is the total weight of a fully loaded truck? I can't even imagine.
Oh, I have no idea. I mean, these are 53-foot long, full-size semi-trucks. I don't know what the weight limit is for the each state, but I mean, they're certified to run in every state, so they're less than that.
Right.
So we talked about, just quickly, I could show you like this photo. This is basically all the fiber that was leaving the compound. So this compound for this event was actually about a block and a half away from the stadium. So they had to run fiber down the street. And then every truck in the compound was connected to this thing and then patched through to the stadium.
That's wild.
And we were actually across the street. So we had to cross the street with this, they actually had to cross the street with this metal platform they put up.
That's a temporary structure?
Yep.
Wow. Yeah.
Yep. And here you could see, the fiber running down the street towards the stadium. Once it crossed the street.
Just draped along that building?
Yep.
That's wild.
I mean, we were there for a week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they just put it up for a week and then they tear it down.
Fiber waterfall. Nils says they must have a security guard with all the copper loaded in. It's a good question. How is security handled for these things? Is it just there's always...
Oh, there's security. Yeah, there's always security on site. Everyone is required to get an ID badge and wear that ID badge.
Mm-hmm.
And the badges are coded in a certain way that, green means access to this thing, blue means access to this thing. If you don't have a badge, the right color, you're not going there, and they will turn you around. It doesn't matter if you're, you need to get in there right away. They don't care. They were told to only let people in with green badges or blue badges or whatever it is. And that's how they enforced it. And this was secured 24 hours a day, 7 days for that week. I think we were there.
That sounds
I always find this truck or this shot impressive. Oh, it is very expensive. I mean, here's a picture of the compound that I was in.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And I actually marked up this picture to show you all the different trucks. So
okay, walk us through some of these acronyms.
Okay. So to start off with, I was in this one right here, which is Mobile Unit 3. It's from a company called Lion Video. And so it's kind of fun. For like the week we were there, stuff was arriving daily. And those pods that are to the right of here, those blue pods, stuff would just arrive in there overnight. And then in the morning, we had to go pull it out and then like install it in the truck because they were just shipping equipment around constantly, like telestrators or whatever it was. I'll touch on it briefly in a minute, but I'll show you some of the stuff that we got just shipped into us. So, like this right here, this is ST11 from a company called NEP. EN1 is actually EN1E is part of a big fleet of 5 trucks, I think it is. And together they make one production. So like Monday Night Football is done with, I think, EN1. And so there's 5 trucks that roll into town that all get connected together and make up what they call EN1, which is not one truck, it's 5 trucks. So here you have things like SS22B, which is what they call a B unit. There's EN1C, so that's part of that same Monday Night Football package. There's CBSC, CBSA, CBSB. Those are another unit. So CBS has a truck, or a series of trucks that go around and do like their football games. And so these units weren't doing football. It was February. So Super Bowl was over. So these trucks are not owned by CBS. They're just for CBS. But when they're not being used, other companies can rent them. So in this case, Turner Sports, who's doing the NBA All-Star game, rented them and used their trucks for this broadcast. So, each one of these trucks had a role. One of these trucks was literally just for passing video signals around. One truck did the game on Saturday night. One truck did the game on Friday night. One truck was responsible for the pregame show. Our truck was responsible for the Twitter feed. So we were there for a week to produce 2 1-hour-long Twitter shows.
Oh, wow. That's so I'm noticing one thing I'm noticing here is this is taking up like 2 full-on city blocks. So what happens if you're in a space that doesn't have 2 city blocks available?
Well, the NBA All-Star game. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Behind the scenes. So the NBA All-Star game or the Super Bowl are big shows that are designed to have, multiple trucks. So they pick venues based on can they park the truck. Typically for, a Saturday afternoon game, let's say it's the noon game on ESPN, you may only have 2 trucks or 3 trucks. And those stadiums all have designated spots where you park those trucks. This is all planned out, months in advance, if not years in advance. They know, that Fox has the big game on this, 2024, the 2027 All-Star game is going to be hosted by CBS, or, this is all planned out years in advance. So there's, they know where the trucks are going to park. They know how to get power there. They know what kind of connectivity they have, or they need to bring in, but, as if you watched years ago, the Super Bowl had a power outage during the game. So even though they planned for it years in advance, they still have power outages that cause issues. And I think the World Series had a power outage like a year after that, and they lost part of their feed. And so all planning in the world can still, doesn't prevent you from getting actual, generator failures or power outages or whatever.
Speaking of failures, Adam says any redundant fiber paths if one is compromised and damaged.
Yeah. All these productions, they're usually 2, if not 3 feeds that go out. 3 types of feeds. There's satellite and fiber almost always. There's also, live view feeds. There's SRT feeds. Like one of the things that I was having to set up on that production was we were sending our feed via SRT. So we got this little box from High Vision, and it had 4 little BNC jacks in the back. And so it sent SRT to Turner Sports over the internet, and that's how our show got on the air to Twitter. But the main show was going out via satellite and going out via fiber. And it's amazing how often the fiber just doesn't get there for some reason, whether it's backhoe fade, whether it's a routing mistake, whether it's who knows what. They always use both because, satellites could fail, but they usually don't fail very often. And fiber seems to fail more often than satellite does these days, but it just depends.
Interesting. That reminded me of a question from earlier. Is there anything in your middle of your stream that handles vertical and horizontal stream platforms differently?
No, I've never done anything with vertical video. I've never fed, Instagram or whatever it is. I've never done that at all. And any feed I've ever done. So no, I've never done that.
So the Twitter stream was Twitter regular 16:9.
Yes, it was Twitter Live or what they call it.
That makes sense. Cool. Well, we're at the top of the hour. Let's do a little Q&A about this stream, since I see a lot of questions about it. People want to know what you're using and what we're using here to chat. So let's do a little peek behind the curtain here to show what's going on. So what are we using to bring in the guests? Jonathan asks, are we bringing in via Streaming Bridge? So actually today we are using Zoom for the conversation and Epiphan's Zoom integration for the production. So that's using the Epiphan cloud, which they sent me a couple of hours of credit to use for this. It basically like spins up a little server in their cloud, and then you get to dial into your Zoom conversation, and it joins a Zoom call like a participant. I don't have like a great way to actually show you that Zoom screen. But yeah, that's what's happening. So let me see if I actually can think of a way to do that. Because I guess I can just bring my laptop. It's not doing anything except Zoom. Here, I can use my overhead camera to show you the Zoom page. So this is what it looks like in Zoom. I've got just like, this is just a regular Zoom call. So Jay is joined as a participant. This is this laptop. And then this is a return feed showing what's on the program stream, which is a cool feature of the Epiphan cloud. So this is actually Epiphan. You can see it says Epiphan Connect here. And this is, so there's 3 people in the call. As far as everybody in the call is concerned, it's just a Zoom meeting. So that's what Jay is seeing. It's a little bit weird to use this for like the host also being in the meeting, which is something that I, if I was managing somebody else's Zoom call, this would be a lot easier to to track, because this would be a remote person, this would be a remote person, and everything's remote. But it's weird that I'm mixing this with me live. So what I'm doing is, what you're seeing from me is my regular camera feed from the switcher. So when I'm showing you this is the live feed from me. This is a super source layout with me and the remote feed. But let me show you what it looks like to configure the remote bit. And I have to go over here. There we go. So this is the Epiphan cloud product. And again, they sent me a couple hours of credit to use for this. It's basically billed by the hour because it's running a server to do all this. This is a meeting that I basically I went and said, like, join this meeting, and then it goes and dials into that Zoom meeting. It found 2 participants, and then it gives you a list of all the participants, and you can start or stop SRT feeds for each. And then there's this return feed down here. So basically what I do is I go into Jay and I say, start the SRT feed. Give me the URL for it. Let's see, is there anything else? Oh, don't pull that feed directly, please. It'll be gone in a second. But that's where you can find the SRT config. It's showing me the video receiving. Looks like we're actually getting not 1080 from Jay for some, probably because my Zoom account is not like a paid account. It is a paid account. It's not like a pro account. And then it's sending this out via SRT. So it's doing the conversion, it looks like. And then you can also do streams for like primary speakers. So, Zoom will auto switch what people are seeing in like the main window. So if you want to just grab that instead, you can, or you can grab ISO feeds from each participant. The return feed is kind of cool. So this is where this is essentially an SRT listener that is receiving a stream. So I can push an SRT feed to this. So I'm pushing from my studio, I'm actually pushing a feed back up to this URL, and it's converting it back for Zoom. So that's how Jay is seeing this. This is the return feed, which is Epiphan's video that they're sending to Zoom, which is actually another SRT encoder that I have in the rack there. So to receive the stream from Jay, I'm using a Magewell Pro Convert, and that is this little box that gets on the network, has an SDI out, and I've just told it to go pull the feed from Epiphan, and then it outputs it over SDI, and then it shows up in my multi-view, just like any other video. So if I look at, where's my multi-view button? There it is. So this is the multi-view of my ATEM. You can see my computer screens in there, the Apple TV's in there, my overhead camera, um, my other cameras, and there's Jay on input 9 over the Pro Convert. So it's just, as far as mixing the show goes, it's just like having another local camera feed. So only weird thing is the delay. And this is where things get a little bit messy all the time whenever you're dealing with remote feeds. The delay is not actually that much. And I can tell what I was seeing. So if I switch back to the super source layout, this is my local camera mixed with Jay's remote camera, which means there's going to be a little bit of a delay between the two. Versus if I was also a remote guest, they would both be delayed, and they would both be delayed by about the same amount, so it would look closer in sync. So hopefully you weren't seeing too much of me speaking over Jay as we were going, because I'm listening over Zoom so that we can actually have a conversation. But then you're seeing Jay slightly behind. But the delay is not actually that much. And the way I could tell was because I'm hearing Jay talk, and then I'm seeing on my multi-view what he's saying. So the delay was like half a second, basically. So it really wasn't that bad. So let's see. Okay, so we got a bunch of questions for you now since I chatted for so long. So Fantastic says, what are you using to pull the SRT streams into? Yeah, so that is the Majorel Pro Convert is receiving the SRT feed, and then for pushing out the return feed, I'm using an SRT encoder that I forgot the brand name of, but it was something I got for just a couple $100 on Amazon. It can do RTMP and SRT. Is Jay using a similar setup on his end for SRT? So yeah, Jay, talk about what you've got on your end and how you're joining from your side.
Okay. Well, I just recently moved to my basement. I had a setup upstairs, and so now I have a Blackmagic TV studio over here that I'm using to switch between my camera and the slideshow. It's doing the green screen for me inside the Blackmagic studio. I have that cable, then the HDMI, or sorry, the SDI output is converted to HDMI and running into a laptop over here that is just joining a Zoom call. And for my audio and video, I just select the capture card or the USB-C device as my audio and video for the Zoom call. And I'm using earbuds for the return audio. And then I have that monitor, the feed that Aaron showed you, pinned, and it's on my screen in front of me. So I'm looking at the camera, seeing the return feed below the camera. So this is my usual setup in terms of hardware now. Currently, I am only 720p. I really do need to go through and adjust everything to be 1080p, but I'm pretty sure the camera can't do 1080p, so I'm not 1080p yet. I actually get some flack over that on my channel. I stream every Monday night, and they're always like, "Why aren't you 4K? Why aren't you blah blah blah?" And I'm like, "Is it the content or is it the quality? Do you really want to see me in 4K? Because I don't think you want to see me in 4K. I think you want to hear what I have to say about X." And so I'm always like, it doesn't need to be 4K, 720 fine. I should probably do 1080p. I get that. I probably will try it tomorrow because I kind of promised everybody last week I would try to do 1080p. So for that shameless plug, I stream every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, great.
So
let me drop a link to your channel again for people to go find you there. Adam says the delay feels longer than half a second. There's 4 seconds of silence between questions and answers. I don't feel like there's 4 seconds between questions and answers, but sometimes like there'll be a pause just because in any conversation or an interview, especially if there's the slight Zoom delay, just knowing whether the other person is about to keep talking or is pausing and waiting. Even in person, that can be a little bit tricky to manage. And then you add the ever so slight Zoom delay, and it just compounds the problem. So if there was a 4 second gap, it's probably because one of us was waiting for the other person to talk, but not because it was actually a stream delay.
yeah, I will say that SRT is really low delay. I mean, some other YouTubers and I did a stream that you can watch on my channel, and we sent SRT feeds directly into Tony at QuickTech, and then he switched the show locally. And I watched that back, and there was occasional, steppage on each other, but I mean, it wasn't too bad. And so I think SRT actually is one of the better protocols for sending high quality video with low latency across the internet. Like I said, the Turner guys used it for their production. I mean, so it's high quality stuff.
Yeah, and I think the Epiphan Zoom integration that we're using here, I wanted to try it out for one, but I would recommend this setup for most people who are interviewing people who don't have a studio on their end, because as far as the remote person is concerned, they're just in a Zoom call. So if you happen to have a good camera, like a capture card or a USB webcam or a USB mirrorless camera that has a USB, interface in it, that's fantastic, and you'll get a better picture. But it can also just work with a webcam on a laptop, and there's nothing about the remote production that is any different from the guest side, which is, in my opinion, the best way to handle remote guests, is just make it so that they don't have to think about anything. Now, what you're talking about of like the 4 remote SRT feeds, that's probably going to get you a better result, because you can force everything into 1080. The resolution. You're not going to have Zoom doing the dynamic compression and adjusting for network quality. So you can probably get a better experience, like a better quality, but it means that you need more gear on the remote end. And you have to also be more confident in your network connection, because Zoom's dynamic bitrate managing stuff is actually great, because it handles unknown, unstable network conditions very well, which is usually what you want when someone isn't in a dedicated fixed studio that they've spent a lot of time tuning the network settings of and all that. So 2 different ways to do it, but interestingly, both of these options are using SRT for the actual remote link, which in my experience has been great so far.
Yeah, I may try that cloud thing. I may see if I can get some credit on that just to try, because that would be kind of cool to try at the TV station.
Mm-hmm.
If we have several remote guests. I mean, we don't typically have more than one person on at a time, but I could see where that would be very helpful.
Yeah, I think it's a really good evolution of remote productions. The Nick says latency is half a second normal for Zoom and perfectly acceptable. Cool. Oh yeah, do you have an app on your phone that can do? I forgot to ask you this ahead of time. That can do like atomic clock or NTP. Do you have an iPhone?
No, I mean, no, I have an Android.
I can't remember the name of the app, but it's a cool way to. We can use the phone network time to get the phones will be in sync with real time, and then we can show it on the screen and show the delay. But now I'm forgetting what the name of this app is. I've used it before on this stream too.
Atomic clock, I'm assuming.
I have one called Atomic Clock. Yeah. It's got ads all over it, but that's fine. So what I want to do is have us both put it up on the screen and get mine in focus. And then somebody can take a screenshot, and then we'll see the actual delay between the 2 feeds. So if you do a snapshot of this, which I guess I can capture a snapshot in my ATEM and then play it back. Let's do that really quick. So do a capture still, and there we go. And now if we look at this screenshot, we should be able to see the actual, oops, there we go. We've got 14.
Michael says 0.9 millisecond.
How is that? Are the clocks actually in?
Or sorry, 0.9 seconds.
0.9 seconds. That makes sense. Okay. We've got. Oh, I can't see that. That is too small. I need to zoom in on that. I need to get this. Yeah, I can't read it from my screen, but you can see it on the stream and zoom in. 0.9 was the.
Yeah, it was definitely less than a second.
That is good enough for me, frankly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean satellite. I think satellite delay, if you dial in the settings, is like a second plus. So I mean, it's definitely less than a satellite delay would be for typical
Yeah.
broadcast
Okay.
usage.
Speaking of delays, Adam says, what's a typical latency on RTMP? Tried setting up a local RTMP server and used my DJI drone to stream to it. Delay was 10 seconds. Yeah. That matches my experience for sure. The thing about RTMP is that there's multiple points at which the delay can get introduced, one of which is the receiver itself. So depending on what you're streaming to, it can be wildly different, even with the same source. So I'm not at all surprised by a 10-second delay. And if you can tune it down, you might be able to get down to about 3 seconds. Like if you look at this stream to YouTube, it's actually only about 3 seconds delayed. So I'm encoding RTMP, pushing to YouTube, and if you pull it up in a browser, there's about a 3-second delay, which is about as good as you can probably hope to get with RTMP. With the exception of Blackmagic's streaming bridge, where they're doing special RTMP stuff. They're doing their own protocol that happens to look a lot like RTMP, but isn't exactly RTMP. And they've tuned it to be about half a second if you're on a LAN. So over the internet, it gets a little bit worse, but if you're local, it'll be like half a second, which is frankly incredible. But theirs is not standard RTMP for sure. Robert says, being just a point-to-point Zoom, is the Epiphan device really needed for this call? Well, I mean, yes and no. Like I said, there's 2 different ways we could have done this. Because Jay has a studio and has encoders, Jay could have been pushing an SRT feed directly to my Magewell device and skipped the Zoom part of the call. We would still need a way to talk to each other, so we would probably still do a Zoom call anyway, but it would just be audio. We wouldn't need it to include video at all. However, that relies on Jay having an SRT encoder, and for most remote guests, they're not going to have a device like that. Even if they have a good camera for their Zoom setup, they're not going to have like an SRT encoder that they can use. So that's the nice thing about the Epiphan cloud is you just send them a Zoom link. They're just in Zoom. They can do whatever they want on their end with Zoom, including using good cameras, or an ATEM Mini and do multi-camera, whatever, it doesn't matter. And then the Epiphan cloud joins your Zoom meeting and pulls out the video feeds from each participant. So I think it's pretty cool. Nick says
I do want to try at some point an SRT to SRT, like just literally back and forth.
Oh,
I'd actually just love to see how actually that would work. You know,
like using SRT both directions for the actual conversation as well.
Yeah. Yep. I haven't tried that yet, but I'd love to try that sometime.
Yeah. Nick says I'm experimenting with Zoom ISO, and one of the limitations with resolution is the remote guest camera plus their network connection. All influence what Zoom negotiates. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Which is one reason why you'd want to use Zoom, because then if there is a low bit rate issue, Zoom can help resolve that, whereas RTMP or other processes could just simply drop out and then you'd have packet loss.
Yeah, and Zoom
or video loss.
does do a very good job of prioritizing audio, which is more important for the whole experience. So Zoom might drop the video bit rate down to be a horrible pixelated mess, but the audio will still sound good because it can use enough bandwidth to prioritize the audio. So I know there's a lot of benefits to that, I think. Seems like on Jay's end, it's just a Zoom call, but for Aaron, it's a way to cleanly get his isolated feed out without a computer outputting HDMI. Exactly. Like this is my laptop on the Zoom call, and it's literally just, it's not connected to anything. It's just floating, right? Like it's just to start the Zoom call. That's why I have this here. So I'm not doing screen capture from that or anything. Yeah, definitely.
And you probably should point out that I'm hearing you from your earbuds.
Oh yeah. Let's talk about the audio
calls.
The audio chain really quick. So I've joined, and again, this is a little bit weird because I'm in this production. If I weren't in the production, this would be different. But you're hearing my audio through my regular microphone on the stream, which matches this video feed. So that's in sync. You're hearing Jay's audio from Jay's microphone, which is connected to his video over Zoom. So he's in sync with him. I'm hearing Jay through his Zoom audio that's going through my laptop. So that's, I'm listening, my headphones are connected to this laptop, which is how I hear Jay. And Jay is hearing me through this laptop. So I've got my headphones again. So my headphones are sending this audio to Jay. So he's not hearing what's on the stream. He's just hearing my, tinny AirPods microphone. But that means there's like no mix minus and no overlapping audio or anything to worry about, because it's just a separate laptop for it. And that's kind of why I wanted to use a separate machine for it instead of my regular computer that's tied into the rest of the production, because it gets more complicated using it that way. Anything else about your audio that I missed?
No.
Cool.
No, you got it.
Cool. Good demo for the Epiphan Cloud, knowing the guest and only needs a Zoom client. That's the idea. That's why I think it's a great option. Cool. Okay. I think we're about ready to wrap this up. Any last minute questions for Jay before we go? Because I am, we're almost at the 90-minute mark. Am I the only one who gets RTSP, RTMP, SRT, WebRTC, RTC, HLS confused? It is a lot of acronyms to keep track of, for sure. How much does the Epiphan product cost? Oh, this is, I believe it's $25 a month base, and then $25 an hour of being like on. So you turn it on, it boots up, it connects to your Zoom, and then you shut it down after the Zoom call. Otherwise, it keeps running and it charges you. So, pretty good price, I think, actually. And thanks to them for the couple hours of credits to make this happen. Okay, cool. Any other? Oh, Fantastic says, Jay, in TV, what are you using for return audio? Phone line or other? Is this for remote interviews, I guess?
Yeah, that'd be for return audio for a guest. We still do phone lines. It's the easiest and most reliable way to do it. So we have 4 telephone interfaces that if you call a certain number, you will hear the audio board mix minus output, and we have we can do 8 channels of mix minus. Only 4 of those feed a phone. So yeah, we still use phone lines. It's the standard in television. Everybody does it. There's no reason to do anything but bigger or better for most things.
Yep.
Because the delay, and this delay, for I'm watching here, we figured out was what 0.9 seconds or whatever. I have YouTube called up in front of me. It's about 3 seconds behind. But in the television world, I mean, talk about delays. In the television world, what you see at home happened at least 4 to 5 seconds ago at the shortest period, because our encoders are taking the video, they're encoding it, they're combining it with other streams. Sorry about that. So they're combining, up to maybe 8 channels of video, sending it out via microwave to a 1,000-foot tower somewhere, where then it has to go through some processes to get into a physical channel that you watch, and then send out to your house. So I mean, you're talking about 4 or 5 second delay at the shortest period. So if a reporter is out live somewhere saying, "Hey, let's take a look at this video," well, if they're watching over the air, they're going to see that 4 or 5 seconds behind. Now, if you want to factor in, quick story, the worst case I've ever seen before was it was like 27 seconds, I think it was. I was at a football game in the press box watching the game happen in real time. And I could text my wife the result of the play before she could watch it at home, watching the same game, because I was watching it in real time. The production truck was there. It did its thing. It sent it via satellite to Fox. Fox did its thing. It put it back up on the satellite, received by the local station. Then, so it was 27 seconds. I think it was before it hit your house.
Yep, that's a lot, and I think Eric has the right idea here too, because it's sometimes intentional delays added, so that you can do the little beeping censoring too. So someone's listening and beeps it out before it actually hits the air.
Yeah, which I haven't seen a whole lot of use of these
Mm,
days. I mean, I know they do it, but there's been a lot of instances where for profanity has actually hit the air, whether it's the Super Bowl a couple years ago, or the quarterback swore, or whether it was a race, was it F1 or whatever it was, where the one person found a microphone and started swearing into it. I mean, it's more people should probably be using the delay. I think we've gotten too comfortable with the fact that it happens, and so they don't
interesting.
use it.
Interesting. All right. Well, cool. I think that's a great way to wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining. It's been a lot of fun, and I will drop your channel link in the chat one more time. Reminder to go subscribe to Jay's channel and go give that 2 hour behind the scenes live stream a watch to get his watch time up too. We'll try to get the watch time on your channel up over the monetization threshold. So
Yeah, I would appreciate that. And again, I stream every Monday night at 9 p.m. I'm planning on streaming tomorrow. I don't have a topic yet, but I mean, I try to choose topics that are tech, relevant to tech and television. Last week I did a RTMP IE, which is like a Docker-based RTMP server with a web interface. It's pretty cool.
that's cool.
If that's a use case you have, then you can watch my video how to set that up. So always looking for suggestions. I like to do deep dives into topics and actually do like how-to, tutorials live on my stream. So if you're into that kind of stuff, please check it out.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining, and yeah, see you on your channel later. All right. Bye.
All right, thank you.
That was a lot of fun. Thanks again to Jay for joining. Give him a round of applause. Always nice to see some more folks on the channel here. And everybody says thanks as well. We are going to wrap this up. I've got a lot more projects to do before we're moving. Moving day is 2 weeks away now. So in 2 weeks, I'll be doing the stream from here, but not having to have biked in first in the morning. So you won't see that many changes here because I'm moving in to here, but still, it's a whole project. If you look around the room right now, it's kind of a disaster, actually. Oh, I do have a shot of the room here. You can probably see, yeah, the new shelf that's appeared that's all taped up. I moved that over yesterday. I didn't move it. I had somebody with a car move it because that one is too big for my bike. I can get the one half that size of my bike, but that one's too big for my bike. Anyway, that is going to eventually move up to the above the little white one in the back. It'll go up there, up on the wall. So that's all part of turning this into my actual office, and just so much to do. Speaking of which, if you want to follow along with more of the moving project, we are posting videos on the House Files channel. So that I just dropped that link in the chat as well. I'm hopefully going to post actually an episode today about the bathroom project that we've been doing. That's just finished filming that. So, oh man, so much to do. 39 likes. Can we get more? Yeah, give us a thumbs up, and we're gonna wrap this up. Thanks again to all the channel members for supporting the channel. Always nice to see continued support. I will be doing more. We have a lot of behind the scenes stuff for members right now. Like there's a behind the scenes stream for this show right now that I started about almost an hour before the show went live as we were setting up the Zoom call and all that. But we've got members only Discord that you can join to chat throughout the week. And I've also been posting pictures of various projects there. And I will be posting more on there once I've finally moved in and have more time to spend on things that are not just packing boxes. So yeah, thanks again. Thanks to everybody. And thank you for thanks to all the super chats as well. Those are another great way to support the channel. It's quite the long list of credits today. So nice to see. All right, we will see you all again same time next week and see what other trouble we can get up to. And with that, I will see you all later. Bye. Bye.